tanks don't need to be clean. You know, go back to the biotope where these fish are found and look at the substrate. Put your hand on it. There's mulch, there's mud, there's sand, there's grit, there's decaying wood and stuff, you know. That is what makes the system work. You could pull a mop out on some of these bigger Melanitania, and if it was sitting in there for 3 or 4 days, you're pulling out like 600, 700, 800 eggs. I mean, it just blows your mind. You pull the mop apart, in some places you can't see the yarn for the eggs. There's that many eggs in there, you know.
Where do you want to start?
All right, let's jump over here. We can see some of the rainbows. I call this the pleca room. It's a little bit warmer than some of the other tanks, but I have pretty much rainbows scattered all over the place. I have some. There's some Melanitania Kianga here. Let me grab a flashlight real quick.
Yeah.
And you know, the best way to see rainbow fish is having this light that hits them from like a 10 o'clock angle or so.
Yeah.
And it really pops the color on them. The lighting that I'm using are homemade LEDs, are bright white and warm white. It's basically for me to look in the tanks. But if you really want to see the rainbows, you need this kind of forward front light to hit them. So these are Melanitania Kianga, fish that I acquired from Johannes Graf when we visited Germany back in 2008. So I've been keeping these going for quite a while. There's a mop hanging. Use 100% acrylic yarn mops.
Yeah.
You can make them in multicolors. Personally, I like the dark forest green color. It's easy to see the eggs against it. Whenever you start using the light colors like what's in there now.
Like white or...
Yeah, the eggs are clear. So when you take that out and put it underneath the overhead light, and you're fanning through the mop looking for eggs, if it's on white and you have all the little glistening water on the edges, it's hard to see the eggs. If it's on dark green, the eggs kind of stand out against it. So I'll take a mop out of there. I'll put it into a hatching tank. Once the fish hatch, I usually leave it in a tank with the eggs for like maybe about 14, 18, 20 days. Take the mop out. I just put it under the sink, jet your finger over a hose to get all the garbage and the debris and detritus out of it. Shake it out real good and hang it and let it dry. As soon as it's dry, it's ready to go again. Yeah, you don't need to disinfect it and all that other stuff, you know. You know, tanks don't need to be clean. You know, go back to the biotope where these fish are found and look at the substrate. Put your hand on it. There's mulch, there's mud, there's sand, there's grit, there's decaying wood and stuff, you know. That is what makes the system work. It's biologically clean, you know, or stable system.
Exactly.
It's not crystal clear, sparkling, you know, you want to eat off of it kind of cleanliness, you know. As long as it's dried out, you know you're not going to transfer if you use them off to another species. That's an important thing when you're working with rainbow fish. If I were to go in there and pull this mop out, and the reason this mop is so big, it's a bigger tank, the fish are bigger.
True.
A lot of times the males will get alongside the females and push them into the mop.
Yeah.
So by using a thick mop like that with a bigger fish, they could get a little bit of substance to push into, and hopefully they'll put the eggs on deeper inside of the mop.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then they won't get eaten, maybe?
Yeah, they're hidden. You know, if they're right on the outside, 2 fish go in and spawn, they swim away, all the other fish come in and bam, 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 pick off all the eggs. So they're eating 90% of your eggs, you know.
Yeah.
So I devised, I'll show you something here in a few minutes, I call it an egg shelf. It's a way of just hatching, another way of hatching eggs instead of picking individuals and putting them in a plastic container. I have a little trap you can put in a tank and get eggs successfully.
So these are the breeders, and then I guess from here on, when people have selected their fish, they've got them in their tank, what would be the next step?
You want to condition them well. Even before you put the mop in, I would say 5 to 7 days, 10 days before you want to put the mop and start collecting eggs. You want to feed them good. A lot of live foods are the best. Next to live is frozen. Next to frozen is freeze-dried, and then you get into your flakes and pellets. So I would pump them up with a lot of like freeze-dried or frozen Daphnia, frozen bloodworms. We have live white worms. Hit them up with that and give them a great diet. You want the females to fill up. You want to get a lot of eggs in the females. When you see the females are plump and staying plump for several days, probably filling up with some good eggs, then go ahead and put your mop in. Spawning usually occurs, the males really fire up in the mornings. First 20 minutes, half hour every morning is when they look their best. And then when their males are excited to breed, they get what's called the flashing, where from their nose going up their forehead, you know, between their eyes. Yeah, they'll turn colors. Some species it'll turn green or yellow and green, and other ones it's bright white, and they can turn it off and on like that. It's amazing. They're fascinating to watch. But they're basically signal for the females, like, I'm ready to go, let's go, come on. And then he'll hang around the mop and then attract the females. Nature takes its course, the females will go over and things will start happening. So, and then, you could, in this system here, there's 2 males and 4 females. If they're in good condition and you put them in there, that mop in there, by the next afternoon, you could probably pull it out and have a pretty fair number of eggs, a couple hundred eggs easily. And depending on what level, we breed to make money, so we want to get a nice hatch, but if you're a hobbyist with 10 or 15 tanks and you don't have many spare tanks, what are you going to do with 400
exactly
of any Melanitania or any rainbow fish for that fact?
Yep.
So a lot of times people will get that and they'll try to grow up all 400 in a 10 or 15 gallon tank, and you're ended up with stunted fish. You would be better off, as horrible as this sounds, feeding off most of them, conditioning other fish with them, and then only try to raise up 20 or 30 for yourself. Those will grow up nice, healthy, in good conditions. Don't try to raise them all.
So fattening them up.
Fatten them up. Introduce your mop. If the mop's full, a couple of options are you can do, you kind of walk along here. And I have a lot of these. A lot of times if I have tanks free, I call this my grow out system. But yeah, here's a tank on the end right here. This has Melanitania Susie in it. Susie. And so what I did now is I just throw the mop in the tank.
Yeah.
But let me grab my flashlight here. And you could probably see against my hand, or maybe not. They're small, they're tiny.
Yeah, they are like hairs, man.
But I don't know if you could see any in there or not. But these are tiny. These fish are. I thought for sure this would work, but getting my hand up against them. But they even know at that small age to run. Here's a couple here you could probably see against my hand.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're tiny. These guys are probably 6-7 days old already, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. They're tiny. So again, here's the mop just floating in there, and as they hatch, they just they're released into the tank.
Yeah.
Normally, what I would do, which I haven't done here yet, is I'll take a bunch of floating plant or even like Java fern or anything like that, or Java moss. I'll drape it over the airline tubing that's sitting on the top of the tank here. See the airline tubing?
Yeah.
I'll drape the plant matter over that, so it's on the surface. So the fry intermingle in there.
Yeah.
They get to feed on all the bugs and organisms and critters and things that are in there, biofilms, whatever. The fry stay at the surface of the tank.
Yeah.
So you want the food to be there. In nature, the food's abundant. They're swimming in their food.
Yeah.
So another trick to do is this mop is kind of thick. It was in a bigger tank with some bigger fish. And remember I told you want the eggs to go deep into the mop because it stops predation in the tank from the other fish. But I have a theory that if the eggs are in the very middle of this, and you have that little egg and that tiny little fish, can you get out of that when it comes hatching time?
True.
It's pretty dense in there. So what you can do is that piece of airline tube you got hanging on the top, take your mop and stretch it over that airline.
It's like halving it almost.
Yeah, so now you have it dangling and spread apart.
Yep.
So what was in the center of the mop now might even be exposed to the water column. So when the fry hatch, they got a chance to get out and free swim. Yep. It's important that you have low airflow. As you can see there, the bubbles are, they're coming out of there. That filter's working somewhat, But what happens is if the current is too strong, those little fish, they're going to burn up all their energy fighting the current. And this is with anything, tetras and barbs, danios, whatever. If they burn up all their energy, then they're going to be dead in a day or two.
True.
They're not eating enough of the bugs and critters and infusoria. Powdered food, I use Micron.
Yep.
Something it's the consistency of flour, really, really fine food.
Just a dust.
Yeah. And I use on any of that powdered food, I use a Q-tip. And again, remember the fries stay near the surface. They're not going to follow food down. So what I'll do is I'll take a Q-tip and I'll just roll it in the food. I'll get it covered on the tip of the Q-tip, and I'll gently tap it. You can see if you can see it on the footage there.
Yep.
See how it gently tap it so it's staying on the surface. So that food over a period of time, it's going to stay floating for quite a while. It's going to get waterlogged and it's going to take a long time for it to sink. That's what you want though. You want more exposure time of it being at the surface so the fry have a chance to eat it.
Yeah.
we have the advantage of being able to work from home. So we could be here, you know, when fish are small like that, the first 2 weeks, I'm hitting them 4, 5, 6, 8 times a day with this powdered food, because it only stays floating. You know, you might be putting the food in there, but if it's sitting on the bottom, it's not benefiting them. It's got to be on the top. So you just give them a little bit, a whole bunch of times. After 2 weeks, you know, once they start taking microworms or brine, live baby brine shrimp, then you're on easy street. You know, you don't have to get critical with that powder. You could hit them 2, 3 times a day, 4 times a day. But when they're small, you really got to put some care into them. Once you do start getting them, you have to just try a little bit of microworms or the brine. Microworms are smaller than brine, so try them first. And with that, if you pay close attention to the fish, you'll see their bellies getting big. You'll know they're eating it. And you can kind of start breathing easy that they're taking something other than powdered food. And then it's real easy when you start putting live baby brine in, because when they eat it, their bellies just get that, you know,
instantly full.
Instantly full. It glows pink or orange, you know.
That's awesome.
And then you're on easy street. You shouldn't have any problems.
So the hardest part is basically from the egg to, I guess, when they start accepting baby brine.
Right. Yeah, that's the most critical time. Usually that happens within, I'd say, probably a 12 to 14 day time period, something like that. It varies in species. Corridors, listen to me. I'm a Cory guy by nature, right? The Bosemani, Melanitania bosemani, are notorious for being super slow growing. They're painfully slow growing. Yeah, you just moved over there. You're getting some. You can even see the jabbawas hanging over the edge of the tank. You know, and that's a food source for them. There's a few Melanitania pygmaea in there. Yeah, it's a tough fish to grow large quantities constantly. To have a supply of them. Because it's just, you need a massive amount of tanks. They grow slow. They're time consuming. You know, very, very time consuming. I sell normally at an inch and a quarter in size, and they're unsexed. Sometimes some of the species that grow quick, you can take a flashlight, and you might catch a shimmer of color on the tail or the body of a male. You'll know that's a male. But the smaller ones that don't have that, this might be males that haven't colored up yet, or it could be very well be females. You just don't know. So best to sell them as unsexed. I do find, and it's kind of frustrating, that a lot of the people that buy rainbows from me, they want to order just males. Because they want to have like my display tank, you know. And I mean, I appreciate that, and that's, you know, you want the beauty of the fish, and you know, that's what you want to have. But if I do that, I'm going to be stuck with a whole bunch of females that I can't do anything with.
Plus, there's another thing, I don't know if this is true, but like, I've heard if you have a female in the tank, the males will color up even more. So it's like a step up, maybe?
Yes, yeah, I agree with that. Even in the display tank, though, males will spar with one another, and that gets them kind of fired up. Maybe even different colors, though, when they're sparring for dominance as opposed to sparring with females. So having some females in a display tank, even if it's you don't plan on breeding them, but even if they're different females of different species, you know, a female's a female, and a male's a male, and a boy's a boy, and a girl's a girl. So, you know, you're going to try to impress them. So, you'll get that feature of it.
Once you've got them in there, they've hatched out. You're at possibly day 14. When do you take the mop out of the tank?
I usually take it out. These have been hatched out now for, so they're probably about 6 or 7 days old. I only had the mop in the tank for 2 days, so everything should have hatched by now. So the mop's ready to come out of there. I'm kind of glad I didn't take it out so you get to see it.
That's cool. It's good.
But I could take the mop out now, and it's not serving a purpose. Wash it out, dry it, and it's ready to go. I did start to say about the mops. So if I would go into that tank and I would check the Kiongas, they're up in that big mop, go to the sink, look through it, there's a bunch of eggs in there, boom, drop it in a tank. The last thing I want to do is go to another rainbow fish at that time. Because there's very good chance you got some eggs stuck on your hands. The worst thing to do is cross-contaminate the next mop you pull. A lot of these Melanitania species, the females look alike. And then the worst thing you could happen is you grow up a female from another species, and you start breeding them, and you end up with Frankenstein rainbows, junk, you know, garbage. They need to be destroyed. You know, we can't have that in the hobby. There's rainbow fish are so beautiful in their natural color, and I got to throw this out there that this is with so many other fish. Don't mess with, you know, who wants to take a neon tetra that's red and blue? I mean, infamous for their red and blue color, then making them platinum. You know, make them silver. It's
just like ruining it.
It's ruining them, exactly. What's wrong with you? You know, leave nature alone. You know, I could see where you're breeding for maybe intensity of color, or
Right.
you know, coverage on the body or something like that.
Yeah.
But you don't need to start hybridizing stuff because you wanted, you know, you wanted a Bosemani that has a blue and white fluorescent tail. You know, no.
Go and get something else.
Yeah. Be happy with what you have.
Right.
It's no reason to do anything else. Oh, and on this system here, this grow out system, there's 27-gallon tanks that are linked together.
Yep.
So once these rainbow fish, we can move down here real quick. I'm gonna make you kneel down here a little bit. Get your exercise. This tank here has some Melanitania sucensis in it. These guys are now probably about 2 months old, and probably about a month and a half old. You're looking at just over ½ an inch or so. So what happens is about a week ago, these guys are eating brine shrimp and there's no problem. Take a look at the little thing right on the bottom there. You see that little guy moving around? See him right down there?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, see that little guy that just scooted around?
Yeah.
Take a look when I move this wood here.
Ooh.
Oh, there goes another one.
This one here. So small.
Oh yeah, there they go, just scooted. So what these are now, these are baby plecos. These are L309 plecos scooting on the bottom. And they're staying under this wood. They're rasping on the biofilm that's on this wood. But they don't conflict at all with the rainbow fish.
Right, so you get two species
growing
making
up
use
in
of
one
real
tank.
estate. I like that.
Exactly. I could do the same thing if I had some baby cories. You know, once the rainbow fish are past the critical stage and they're getting on brine shrimp, now they're ready to add something else in there. And they kind of complement one another, because what the rainbow fish don't eat in the free fall, in the free water, you know, free floating water, sinks to the bottom, then you have a bottom feeder on the bottom.
Little cleanup crew.
And if push comes to shove and I have a spawn of some cories where I may only have 20 fry, I could put a group of cories in there.
So with them as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
So now you have plecos in there, you have cories, and you have rainbow fish. You're growing up 3 different species in one tank.
There you go.
Keeping in mind now that all 27 of these 10s are linked together.
Yep.
So you could have a tank here that's just jam-packed with fish, but then you have this tank we looked at earlier with these tiny little fish. This is hardly any bio load on the whole system. Where this tank here that's loaded with fish might be really, really putting a hurting on the bio load. It's not, because it's about 300 gallons of water.
Oh,
so they're
that's smart.
confined to 10 gallons of water space, but they're living in 300 gallons. And this is the return line is this line here. It's just a straight nozzle, straight nipple, and there's like a pea stream of water coming out of there. So it's not huge, but it's you know, it's a constant water change. It probably turns the water in the tank 6 or 7 times a day, maybe 8 times a day or so.
Yeah.
I don't like snails. If you see some, I seen one earlier. I wanted to crush them really bad. Snails.
Oh yeah.
Snails have a purpose.
Yeah.
But if you have a tendency to overfeed or anything, they can become a problem.
Right.
You know, they'll just take over and it'll become a nuisance. You know, they then be competing against the tank. I wanted to add plecos to that tank. If there's snails in there, they ate all the algae and the biofilm off everything.
Yeah.
So now the plecos are hurting. They don't have that food, you know. So you got to be careful about that. Speaking of eggs, come on over to the other room right now, real quick.
Yep.
And you noticed in that one tank with the Kiongas that we had in that big tank with that big mop.
Yep.
I've learned over the years, I call this the big room or the cold room. This room's usually about 6 degrees or 7 degrees cooler than the other room. So in this tank here, I have Melanitania pygmea.
Oh, they are nice.
Yeah, that's full-grown adult fish. They're like kind of the ultimate rainbow fish. They stay small, they're active, they're always out. They're not aggressive at all. There's males and females together. Males to males don't bother anybody. There's no shredded fins or anything. Awesome fish. And if you notice over here, I have the mop is sitting on the floor.
Okay.
The reason for that is if you had a floating mop in there and you had that sunken mop, you could take that floating mop, leave it in there for 4 days, pull the floating mop out and squeeze, give it a gentle squeeze, take it underneath of a bright light, and you might find 2 eggs in the bottom of the mop. This mop here has been sinking on the bottom. I put this in, you guys got here a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
And just a couple of days before you got here.
Do you want me to hold it?
Now here, take a watch. What I'm doing, I'm just giving it a gentle squeeze just to get a bunch of the water out. Remember, this is all yarn, so it's pretty soft and cushiony.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go under the light here. I'm actually going to go over this overhead light. And we're going to fan through this. You get a little bit more squeeze. Because there's the less water in here, the easier it is, less glistening and the easier it's going to be to see eggs.
Oh yeah, there's a couple there.
Yeah, look at them. Look at them all down here. Look at all these eggs in here.
Holy moly.
See all those eggs?
Yeah.
These pygmaeus rainbow fish like to dive into the mop
Really?
to produce their eggs. Look at all these eggs. Look at them.
Yeah, wow.
Look at them. Is that great? Now, I just did that. I could feel eggs sticking on my fingers. Why you never want to go from tank to tank. Okay, because this is a pretty nice, pretty nice spawn of pygmaeus. And as you keep rolling through there, you just keep kind of uncovering more and more. But a floating mop in that same tank for the same length of time, you might find 2 eggs in it. Mm-hmm. It's important that you offer them floating mop and a sunken mop.
So you can see what they prefer.
Yeah. Most like the floating.
Yep.
But there are a few that will prefer the sinking. And it kind of blows my mind that, okay, I'm a fish, I want to reproduce, nature's saying reproduce. Mm-hmm. And if the only place I have is 4 inches higher than this,
right,
you're telling me that they just won't go there. You know, they're going there no matter what. And if that mop wasn't in there, mm-hmm. you'd still only find 2 eggs. They're just not going to spawn because that's not where they want to throw their eggs, you know.
It's like goes down to be the fish, I guess, again.
Yeah, be the fish. Here you go. So on this mop right here, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a hatching container.
Yep.
And I use a lot of Sarah products. I feel that they're a pretty good product here in the U.S.
Yep.
Rinse my hands off to try to get some of them eggs off. I'm going to go back to the tank that I collected these from, and I'm going to take tank water. And I'm going to put enough in here to just cover the mop and have enough room that the mop can freely move around. Yep. I don't have any empty tanks, so I'm not going to put them in a tank.
Uh-huh.
So
this is like another method, right?
Yeah. This is, if you don't have the tank space. So I'm taking this container, and I'm going to take it over here, and I'm going to run an air line into it, like this. Mm-hmm. Follow that up.
I'll jump on this side of it.
And now I'm going to do this air, you can see hardly the bubbles in there.
Right.
It's just enough to keep the water from getting stagnant on the top. And again, because that mop's been in there now for 4 days, most rainbow fish take around 9-10 days to hatch, somewhere around there on an average. Mm-hmm. Depends a little bit on temperature and species. So probably in about 5 days, you're going to start hatching. I don't need a heavy turbulence saying, I'll turn it down when they're ready to hatch. I don't have to worry about it, just leave it low now. I spread the mop out to kind of break up so it's not dense anywhere, you know.
Yep.
And every day I'll start checking it and looking for fish to hatch. I was lucky enough to have somebody bring me over. Thanks, Harley and Nick. They brought me over a couple of mops from.
Ooh, it started hatching already.
So yeah, there's a few that are hatching in there. There's a couple. There's one in the corner. Yeah, there's a couple right there that are hatching. You can see them along the surface.
Yeah.
These were from a good friend of mine, Gary Lang. You can see some of the white eggs went white on me, which always happens. You're going to lose some eggs.
Yeah. But
a good sign. They're already starting to hatch. So, so I got a new species here to play with that I haven't had before.
Awesome.
So I got the Melanitania tawa from him, and these are the I don't even know how to say it.
I don't blame you. I can't do any of that.
I'll have to, before I make a fool of myself, I'll find out how to really say the name before I start throwing it around.
Any other ones are the Cali tawa, or?
Yeah, these are the tawa in this one here. So I see a couple white eggs, but I don't know how long Gary had the mops in. But
yeah, true.
They should start hatching and have no problems. I'll leave them in here. Do like I did with the other tank. I'll start feeding the powdered food with the Q-tip. Right. Once I see fry, like I fed these guys this morning. There's only a few in there, so I put a little bit in. I'll try to hit them 3, 4, 5 times again today, just for the couple that hatch. Hopefully more will hatch out. It's nice to get a hatch of at least 10, 12, 15. You'll never raise all that hatch. They're so small and delicate. I would assume that if you could raise half of what's hatched, you're doing pretty good. Yep. Now some of these, you could pull a mop out on some of these bigger Melanitania, and if it was sitting in there for 3 or 4 days, you're pulling out like 600, 700, 800 eggs. I mean, it just blows your mind. You pull pull the mop apart in some places, you can't see the yarn for the eggs. There's that many eggs in there, you know. So, but again, in a way, that's almost beneficial that you can't raise them all.
True.
Because you're going to overcrowd them. You know, you're going to neglect some of them. You know, predation will happen. Bigger ones will start feeding on smaller ones, things like that. So you got to know your limits, know what you're qualified to do and capable of doing with your setup and everything.
Right.
But I do the same thing with Cory cats. Cory cats I throw in a little container, drop an air stone, and these have already hatched, so I do a little bit more current. The current isn't as critical with them because the Cory stay on the bottom.
Sure.
You know, these bubbles are causing a surface thing. With anytime I hatch Corys, I throw an alder cone in here. The alder cones have natural properties, antibacterial properties to it.
Yeah.
And it stops fungus eggs from fungusing up. It gives the chance to good eggs to hatch out. I had some Danio chopperay in here, and I actually threw a couple alder cones in there also.
They're like microscopic pine cones for us Aussies.
Yeah, there's 30 species of it worldwide, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's a species of alder that's in Australia.
Most likely, yeah.
One of my sayings is, can it hurt me, can it help me? And I don't think that alder, because you're putting a little bit of tannins in the water, all these fish have tannins in the water they're coming from. Right. So I'm pretty sure that if anything, it's helping me. It's not hurting me in any way. Yeah. Even with rainbows or Corys or chopperay, tetra type fish or whatever. So
awesome.
So I mean that's pretty much rainbows in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Probably unusual things would be sometimes the pH, whether it's high or low, made it growing the fry up.
Yeah.
The high or low pH could influence the sex ratio, and the same thing with temperature. High temperature or low temperature will give you a higher male or female ratio.
Yeah.
So it's not the same with every species. I often find that most of my stuff I'm breeding usually around, this room, again, it's usually about 6 degrees cooler. So you have a range of probably about 78 to 84 range. And most often, I grow them up and it's pretty even sex ratio on them. But like what the heck are they called? I forget the name of them. But there's a few that are active in the hobby right now. Yeah. That the temperature will influence the sex ratio.
Interesting. I find that with live bearers too sometimes.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you had any like special tips for anyone, like a takeaway point for breeding rainbows, what do you reckon that would be? Like a piece of advice, maybe?
Patience.
Patience.
You got to have patience. Oh, I forgot to show you one thing. Come on over here real quick.
Sure.
So I come up with this idea. Remember I was telling you about the mop being too thick and the eggs might not be able to get out of it, and you could spread the mop out. I devised this thing. Regina years ago started playing around with a type of yarn called eyelash yarn. Okay. And there's a couple variances of it. It's real fine. The fibers of it are kind of flake apart. And I actually took I knitted through some plastic canvas. And what I did, I call it my egg cradle. I haven't tried it on anything yet but rainbows, because what I'll do is I'll put this in a tank where I want to put the rainbows in. And come on over on this side, probably you get a better look at this.
Oh, yeah.
So what happens now is the plastic is cut a little bit longer than the tank. Yeah. So now I can, the tension of the arc keeps it where it's at. If you notice, if you look in there really good, it's just like fibrous, it's you could see through it, but there's a lot of strands in there.
Oh yeah.
But it's kind of open.
Yeah.
So what I'll do, if right now I have some maculosis, Glossolepis maculosis. The eggs are really small. Yeah. I've tried a few things to hatch them out. I could get eggs, but they're really small. So what I did, my first attempt on it didn't work out. I really didn't get much of a hatch. But I picked the eggs and I could separate the eggs. I'll pull a couple eggs and then put my fingers in and just run it across some of that fiber, and the eggs will stick to it. They have like a little, like a hair filament where they'll stick. Yep. And then I'll put some in the back. I'll put some here. I'll just kind of move all around the egg cradle here. And then what happens is, because it's so free and easy, they can swim out of there easy when they hatch.
Right. It's like a refuge.
Yeah, well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's probably applications of this for a lot of killifish and some other things too.
True.
But I just kind of stumbled upon this a few weeks ago. Try ideas. Ideas, no matter how corny they are. If it doesn't work, but it cost me, a half of a spool of yarn or whatever, and a little piece of plastic egg crate.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work for this, I'll throw this in a plastic container somewhere, and 6 months from now, I might be working with a fish and say, hey, I got the perfect thing. You know, this egg cradle.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
multi-purpose.
you know, ideas, you just got to kick them around, modify them a little bit, tweak them or something like that. You could, my first thought was actually, instead of having the arc, was just attaching it to 2 pieces of styrofoam.
Yeah.
But I want the arc because I want it deep and
better.
shallow too. So I want to have the variety of a choice of where to put it. Water can flow through it, heat can flow through it with the plastic. Mm-hmm. So get creative and come up with some ideas on things that you can modify. Go to a home improvement store. Just take your time and walk up and down. You know, walk through the lumber department and the masonry department, and often you'll find something that's like, hey, I could use that in my fish room. You know.
Be experimentative. Have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome.
Big part of the hobby.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for showing us around.
All righty. Hey, good luck breeding rainbow fish. Give them a try. Be patient. They're slow growing, and you gotta put a little bit of effort into them with the feeding. Is mainly the thing. Mm-hmm. But be patient and don't give up. Keep trying with them. You'll get it. So.
Cool.